So I don't feel as blind as I don't know, maybe other atheists do.
How have friends from childhood reacted to your becoming a pundit?
Well, I didn't keep in touch with too many of them. But the ones that I did have been all very, very proud and happy for me, even though they're largely in a different political camp than I. Very happy and excited for me. I haven't really met anyone or run into anyone who's been anything other than really excited.
Could you tell me the story of your political journey? Were you always conservative?
I didn't grow up in a particularly political household. My parents talked a lot about hard work, personal responsibility, compassion. So I guess sentimentally those things were always with me. It didn't occur to me that those might be conservative ideals. And I don't know if they're exclusively conservative ideals, but that didn't occur to me until much later. In fact, I always thought of my parents as being Democrats, and it wasn't until I sort of came into my political own that I discovered, in fact, they had been Republican, and that I was too. And it wasn't until college I was at a debate between Jeremy Rabkin, who's this sort of infamous Cornell professor, he does policy work. And I interviewed him for the book. He's really, really smart. A debate between him and some other guy, a visiting professor, my freshman year on affirmative action. And I just found myself siding with Rabkin against affirmative action. And it really just sort of pushed me to research my own political ideology a little bit more and figure out what it is that I believed in. And it just became very apparent that I was a conservative. And then, a quick step after that was to identify myself as a Republican. 9/11 certainly helped gel that as well. So I was here in Manhattan when it happened, and the aftermath as well. But it just became, it became sort of it was a natural progression. You start making money, you wonder where it's all going. I think that happens to a lot of people.
How did this book come to be?
Well, Brett and I, my co-author, we went to Cornell together and weren't really good friends. We were friends of friends, and then we were both in Manhattan working, and we'd hang out socially from time to time, and it became clear that we were both two of the only Republicans we knew in Manhattan. And we just talked about how fun it would be to write a political tome, sort of defending ourselves once and for all against the stereotypes and the sort of well-worn, caricatures that we were constantly facing. And it really just evolved from there. We said, set ourselves a schedule and developed an outline and started interviewing people, and it just became.
What surprised you in the course of researching and writing the book?
What surprised me most was how unglamorous it is to write a book. It's not the sort of sexy, romantic, big mahogany desk with a typewriter and a glass of wine and French music playing with the, windows open. It's not that at all. As I'm sure you know, it's hard work. It's very mechanical. It's very, it's a business, and you have to approach it like it's a job. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy it, because I did tremendously. But my idea of being a writer and writing a book was wrapped up in this sort of movie, image that I had, and it wasn't that at all. It was hard work that required a tremendous amount of discipline when I had a full-time job and, graduate school to contend with at the same time.
What do you love and hate about being interviewed?
I'm not in love with the sound of my own voice. That has gotten pretty annoying to me. I don't like getting, I don't think anyone likes having to answer the same question over and over again. So it's always nice when you get a really sort of interesting interview where people want to ask interesting questions that they've really thought about and, that sort of get beyond the superficial. But other than that, it's, for me, getting interviewed is part of my job, and I'm generally happy to do it.
Where does the publication of this book rank among your life's highlights?
Oh, I can tell you with complete honesty, it was number one. I mean, absolutely number one. I hope that doesn't stay the case. But at the time of its publication, I have to tell you, I was absolutely convinced, paranoid, that I was going to die before I finished the book. I would walk home from work and hope not to get hit by a bus every day until this book was published. And I just wanted something out there so that if I died young, there was some contribution on the shelf, in the public domain, where my ideas about something were out there. And so once it was ecstasy. I cried multiple times. I threw myself multiple parties. I was in heaven, and it's still a huge source of pride for me. But again, I hope I have other milestones, both personal and professional, that unseat it.
What are the most interesting reactions you've received to the book?
Well, when we first pitched the book to literary agents, which are, a fairly liberal group, and most of them in New York City, the reaction was hostile. It was like threatening and violent. The responses we got from some of these literary agents ranged from, we hope your teeth fall out, to, you're drowning in the blood of our children. I mean, just kind of really graphic and really silly responses from businessmen and women who should really just kind of want to make money. But, politics, especially in New York, are just so divisive. So that was funny and kind of difficult to deal with, but afterwards, there really hasn't been a huge range. The people that talk about the book most often are conservatives, and so they enjoy it. Liberals have largely ignored it, which is completely fine. But I get a broad range of mail in reaction to my columns or my appearances on Fox or wherever. Ranging from death threats and hate mail to marriage proposals and everything in between. It's just how it is.
How do you like doing Red Eye?
Oh, it's so much fun. I've been told by a number of people that it's not good for my credibility, but if Ann Coulter and Bill O'Reilly, if they can do it, I can do it. I mean, I love it. It's so much fun. Those guys are hilarious. They're some of the smartest writers I know. And it's a nice break from Hannity or, the pundit pit to be able to sit and laugh about some of this stuff. That's been really fun. I love doing Red Eye and will continue to do so as long as they want to have me.
Do you have a philosophy of punditry? I mean, what are your guidelines?
It's really simple. Again, I in terms of what's appropriate and not appropriate, I always wonder how my mother's going to react. So I try not to say anything that would upset her. I don't always succeed, but for the most part, that's the guideline I follow there. And in terms of my political, what I share and how I express my political views, I try not to get personal or nasty. I hate cutting people off, so especially women. So I try not to do that when I'm in a situation where there are other panelists. And I say what I mean. And I try not to be too inflammatory, but I say what I mean, and I say it with passion. And I think that's what makes someone interesting to watch. It's not necessarily my goal to be interesting to watch, but I think that's how I've always approached it.
How have you gotten so much accomplished at such a young age?